I am making a marincess deck profile. This deck is more or less just a water version of Salmon Great, and it's just really fun to play. However, there's one card in the extra deck that should be an access code, but I'm just playing it because I figured why not, since I don't have access code anyway. But the deck's a lot of fun. It is a control deck, but starting with the monsters, I play 2 copies of marincess Mandarin. It's a level 1 water cyberse that its effect is if you control 2 or more marincess monsters while cards in your hand or graveyard, target one lead monster you control, special summon it to a zone that monster points to, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use each effect of it once per turn. So it's an extender. Then I play 3 copies of marincess Seahorse. Seahorse's effect is you can special summon this card from your hand to a zone your marincess monster links. Your marincess link monster points to. You only special summon it once per turn that way. But during your main phase, except turn it was sent to the graveyard, you can banish it from your graveyard, special summon 1 water monster from your hand to a zone link marincess link points to. Each of its effects being once per turn. It is pretty decent to have when you need an extender. And then haven't figured out which of these is a starter, but I think they both technically are, and that's 3 copies of marincess Pascalis and 3 copies of marincess Blue Tang. Pascalis's effect is when it's been normal or special summon, you special. I don't know how the words work. If it is normal or special summoned, you can special summon 1 marincess monster from your hand in defense position, except for another Pascalis. And then during your main phase, except for returning it into the graveyard, you can banish it from your graveyard and add a marincess spell or trap in your graveyard and add to your hand. Each effect being hard on its returns. Marincess Blue Tang is when it's normal or special summon, you can send 1 marincess monster from your deck to the graveyard. So if you see these 2, normal summon and Pascalis, special Blue Tang send Mandarin to the grave. Since you control 2 or more, so you can special summon Mandarin from your graveyard. That gives you 3 that you can use for link climbing. Usually into Blue Slug, and then Sea Angel, and then Coral Anemone, and just keep building. But Blue Tang's other effect is when it's sent to the grave as link material for a water monster, excavate top 3 cards of your deck and add an excavated marincess card from your hand, and the rest go back into the deck. Each effect is a hard once per turn. And that is it for the marincess monsters that I'm playing. The other monsters that I'm playing are a frog engine. So I play 1 rodent totem. It's a free summon from the graveyard by banishing a frog. And that's pretty much the only effect you ever use with this. 1 dupe frog. The only effect that's ever used with this is while it's on the field, your opponent cannot attack any other frog. Or never actually read the card. It's not simple. Okay, it's the only monster allowed to be attacked. Then I play 3 copies of Swap Frog. Swap Frog lets you discard a water monster, the special summon from your hand. And when it's summoned, you can select and send 1 level 2 or lower aqua water monster from your deck or your side of the field to the graveyard. So you discard a water special or discard a frog special of this. Send rodent totem, banish a frog from the grave, summon rodent totem, make toad. And it has another effect. You can return 1 monster you control to the hand, and then normal summon 1 frog monster, except swap frog or frog's jam, in addition to your normal summoner set. And then the last frog I play, I actually kind of like it because I'm greedy. So 3 copies of Poison Draw Frog. Its only effect is when it's sent to the graveyard, except for being attacked face down and destroyed as a result of battle. Draw a card. So if your hand's bad enough, you can special summon Swap Frog send this to the grave, draw a card. Or even discard this off of Swap Frog. So if I guess technically, yeah, because of that, if I see these two, that tells me to get a Toad plus 1 card. Discard this, special, chain 1, then chain 2, so I can send the Rodent Toad and then draw, Reinitiate that, summon Rodent Toad, and overlay for Toad. That is it for the monsters in my deck. Moving on to this. Oh wait, I forgot about these 4. I play 1 copy of Scripton. I have no clue what this card does because I just added to the deck because one of my friends said I should. You can banish 1 Cyberse monster from your graveyard except for its another copy of Scripton. Special summon this card from your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard as material for a link summon of a Cyberse monster, you can target 1 banished monster, shuffle into the deck. You can only use each effect of it once per turn. It is a water Cyberse, so it actually mixes with the Marincess as well. And then just for another extender, I do play 3 copies of Aqua Spirit. Banish a water, special summon it. That's about it. Just level 4, so you can make Shark with it. Yeah. Now moving on to the spells. Play 1 copy of Upstart Goblin, Monster Reborn, and Marincess Battle Ocean, as well as Mind Control. For one, I have to go second. But Battle Ocean makes it so that all Marincess monsters gain 200 attack. Also, each one gains additional 600 for each Marincess card equipped to it. Monsters that you control in the extra monsters zone that were link summoned using Marincess Crystal Heart as material unaffected by opponent's card effects. When you link summon a Marincess monster to the extra monster zone, except during the damage step, you can equip up to 3 Marincess linked monsters with different names from your graveyard to the link summoned monster. Usually you'll be using this effect when using Coral Anemone and Crystal Heart to summon Great Bubble Reef. But anyway, moving on with the rest of the spells. I play 2 copies of Salvage so I can get things I need back in the graveyard. 2 copies of Moray Greed. Just shuffle 2 water monsters from your hand to the deck and then draw 3 cards. Then I play 3 copies of Signet Mining. Signet Mining says you can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard to add a level 4 lower Cyberse monster from your deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 Cyberse Mining per turn. So it's essentially reinforcement of the army for the Cyberse archetype. Or Cyberse typing, not archetype. That is it for these spells. Moving on to the traps. And if there's any of those spells you don't want to play, I would suggest... Or if there's any spells or cards that you don't want to play, I would suggest replacing them with Solemn cards to help, because this deck is supposed to be a control deck. But I do play 3 copies of Marincess Wave. Marincess Wave can be active if you control a Marincess Link monster. Target 1 face-up monster opponent controls and negate that face-up monster's effects to the end of this turn. Then if you control Link 2 or higher Marincess, all face-up monsters you control are affected by opponent's card effects until the end of this turn. But the fun part about it is if you control a Link 3 or higher Marincess monster, it can be activated from your hand. The same goes for all the Marincess traps. So this card in Marincess is a semi-better impermanence that instead of turning off spells and traps in your opponent's column, this just protects your monsters from their card effects for the turn. And a card I think is hilarious just because when I accidentally used it against a Sky Striker player was hilarious. I play 3 copies of White Howling. White Howling can be activated if you control a water monster, but you target 1 spell card in your opponent's graveyard, remove it from play, and if you do, for the rest of this turn, negate all spell effects on your opponent's field. So you can tell your opponent that they don't give you spells for a turn, which is I find to be kind of hilarious when they actually need their spells. That's it for the traps and the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. I play 1 copy of Marincess Sea Angel. Sea Angel requires 1 level 4 lower Marincess monster. And if it's link summon, you can add one marincess spell from your deck to your hand, which is always going to be marincess Battle Ocean because that's the only spell to my knowledge that they have. And then you can only link summon it once per turn. Then I play 2 copies of marincess Blue Slug. Blue Slug has the same summon requirement as Sea Angel. And its effect is if it's link summoning, target one marincess monster in your graveyard except for itself. Add it to your hand. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except water monsters. Which is fine because every monster in this deck is water except for the card that should be access code. And I play 1 copy of Crystal Heart. You never use this card's effect. You only use it for Battle Ocean's protection effect. Then I play 3 copies of Coral Anemone. Coral Anemone requires 2 water monsters and lets you target 1 water monster in your grave with 1,500 or less attack points in your graveyard, special summon it to a zone it points to, but you're not allowed to special summon for the rest of the turn except water monsters. If this card is sent to the field from the field to the graveyard, you can target 1 marincess card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use each affected Coral Anemone once per turn. Then I play 2 copies of marincess Marbled Rock. Marbled Rock requires 2+ water monsters. You can target 1 marincess card in your graveyard, except Marbled Rock, add to your hand. You'll use each effective Marbled Rock once per turn. When an opponent's monster requires an attack, you can send 1 marincess monster from your hand to the graveyard. For that battle, monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, you take no battle damage. Then I play 1 copy of marincess Wonderheart. Wonderheart has the same summon requirement as Marbled Rock, requiring 2+ water monsters. Once per battle, during damage calculation only, if this card battles a monster, quick effect, you can special summon 1 of your marincess monster cards equipped to this card. Also, this card cannot be destroyed by that battle, and you take no battle damage from that battle. Equip that special summon monster to this card during the end phase. If this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 link 3 or lower marincess monster from your graveyard. I only read this card word for word because I had never summoned it. So it's kind of meh. And the link 4 that I've always summoned is 1 copy of marincess Great Bubble Reef, requiring 2+ water monsters. It has the effect during during either player's standby phase. As a quick effect, you can banish 1 water monster from your graveyard or face up from your field, draw 1 card. Every time a monster is banished face up, it gains an additional 600 attack for each until the end of the turn. And then you can send 1 water monster in your hand to the graveyard, special summon one of your banished marincess monsters. You can only use each of its effects once per turn. But this exists because that's link 4, so you can activate marincess away from your hand, and it's unaffected by your opponent's card effects, so they can't negate it. And usually, with Battle Ocean in play, with its full effect, it'll end up gaining 2,000 off of Battle Ocean, putting it at 46, and by its own effect, it'd be at 5,200 during your opponent's turn. So it's a pretty big beat stick that's unaffected by opponent's card effect. So, but that is it for the Link monsters. Moving on to the Xyz monsters, I play 1 copy of Bahamut Shark, 1 copy of Toad. Bahamut Shark's only in here so I can summon Toad more often. And I am trying to be cute because also I don't remember how or what happened to one of my Abyss Dwellers, but I also play 1 copy of number 32 Shark Drake. I only play this because I don't remember what my Abyss Dweller is, otherwise I'd be playing that. But also I find this to be useful whenever I can make it, because normally when I make this I end up winning. Anyway, their effects are Bahamut Shark lets you use a material, especially when I rank 3 or lower water monster from your extra deck. However, it's not allowed to attack for the rest of the turn. Toad lets you use a material, especially summon a frog from during either player's turn. Lets you use a material so you can special summon 1 aqua type monster from your deck. And Toad also has the effect you can contribute an Aqua Monster to negate the activation or effect of a card, destroy it, and then you can set it to your field. And if Toad is sent from that field to the graveyard, you can target one water monster in your grave, including itself if it, as long as there's another target. Return it to your hand. And Shark Drake lets you, when it destroys an opponent's monster at battle, you can use and sends it to the graveyard. You can use a material. Special summon that destroyed monster from your opponent's graveyard to an attack position with 1,000 less attack points to their field. And Shark Drake can gain a second attack during that turn. And then the card I play instead of Access Code, because I don't have it, is one copy of number 96, Dark Mist. Dark Mist requires 3 level 2 monsters, which is why there's so many frogs. But it has the effect of once per battle during either player's turn. When an attack is declared involving this card and an opponent's monster, use a material, and it steals half of that monster's attack points. This card is the original Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon. The only primary difference is this keeps the attack points and can keep doing it by using one material instead of 2. Anyway, that is it for my marincess deck profile. If you have any ideas of what I can do to improve the deck, or have any other deck you would like me to make and then post on my channel, feel free to comment below. Thanks for watching.